Introducing the Parameta Bliss Podcast, a show dedicated to unraveling the mysteries of achieving optimal health naturally as you transition into perimenopause and menopause. Get ready to join your host, Dr. Seth Yates, an experienced naturopathic doctor, acupuncturist, and kinesiologist, as he shares his wealth of knowledge acquired from over 40,000 patient visits and 15 years in working with perimenopausal females. Welcome to the Parameta Bliss Podcast.
Hey, this is Doc Yates, and welcome to the Parameta Bliss Podcast. And on today's episode, I want to teach you how to have great legs for life. So what does that even mean, to have great legs for life? I think people always just envision like this, like really toned leg, but it's not just about how it looks, it's about how it feels at the same time. And you kind of want to have the best of both. So let's dive in, because I personally have had a lot of knee injuries growing up, football injuries, surgeries on my right knee. And it's something that this is not just for my audience. It's not just for my patients. This is something I care about as well, because it makes a difference in my life, in my legs, and how I feel as well. So a lot of the lessons that I'm going to be teaching are not just things that I've used for patients, but things that I've also used for myself. So let's get into the 5 key points of things that you need to consider. Now, each point we're going to expand on quite a bit as we go. So number 1, balanced strength. It's very common, people are like, oh, I'm going to do these leg exercises, but they don't always address all the muscles properly. And in doing so, what that means is that they're getting stronger, but they're doing it in a way that pulls their legs out of balance. So when you do that, you start to see more issues with your knees, more issues with your ankles, and then actually more issues further up as well, like sometimes issues up into your back, shoulders, and then issues going down into your feet. So balanced strength. So to give you an example, there's something they're referred to in physiology as the Q angle. The Q angle. So this is especially important for females. The Q angle is that angle from your hips down to your knees. So females generally have a wider hip relative to their knee. And in doing so, instead of their legs coming straight down, they come down on an angle, like angling inwards. You want to imagine like a slight knock knee. Much more common in females because of the design and shape of their hips. What this means, though, is that they're more prone to getting kneecap issues, like that their kneecap can actually pull out to the side because the way the muscles pull on that angle. So they're more apt to get kneecap issues, and then other issues along their medial, like the meniscus and stuff on the inside of your knees, and then it leads to foot and pronation issues as well. And it works both ways, because excess pronation would make that worse too. So a lot of the work I find in balancing for females is doing things to correct this. So from a strengthening issue, you have to put a lot of effort into your glute muscles and into the sides of your hips. So things like leg raises, or they'll have you do squats where there's bands around your knees and you have to be able to hold your knee. They call them monster squats, but you take a band, you put it around your knees, and you have to hold your legs outwards while squatting down to activate your glutes. The other thing that you have to strengthen then is the inside of your knee. So your quad muscles, there's 4 hence the term quad, there's 4 of them. The one on the innermost side, so imagine a bodybuilder who has huge quads, so they have that one muscle on the inside of their knee. It looks like a teardrop shape. This is called the vastus medialis, and this muscle will help stabilize the inside of your knee. So this is where you can do exercises to strengthen this. They usually recommend a lot of the backwards training, like if you're pulling something and walking backwards, or if you're doing things with your heels elevated. So instead of just doing a regular squat, you'd be doing a squat in or on like a slant board. So your feet or your toes are down and your heels are up. Basically, imagine wearing high heel shoes and then doing a squat in the high heel. That would activate that muscle a lot more. So those are all things that play a role with the Q angle. But I would say from an overall standpoint, from what I see in patients with muscle weakness, yeah, actually, you know what? Even for men, it would be those muscles. Most people don't have strong enough glutes because we're sitting all day. And most people, they get a lot of their strength in the outside of their quads. That's just because of the nature of the exercise, whether you're doing squats and not going deep enough, or whether you're just doing leg extensions, not enough strengthening in those spots. Now, we also have to dive into the flexibility aspect of things. Because sometimes, too, the muscles that are the weakest, you would assume that therefore they're the loosest, and it's not the case. It's a lot of times the muscles that are weak are often too tight. So the biggest issues that will play a role with your leg health, besides balancing your strength, is balancing your flexibility. I will dive into the ones that I see in practice the most, but as the most problematic. And you know what? The thing is, a lot of times people are very stiff all over. So really, general flexibility is probably going to be your best, but the worst ones, hip flexibility. Way too tight through the hips. And so, I mean, through the glutes, through the side of it, through the piriformis. That would be an example of something called pigeon stretch or a figure 4 stretch, where you're crossing one leg in front and then bending forward. That would be a great stretch to help loosen up your hips. I find a lot of people, in terms of just pulling their knee into their chest, they're pretty good that way. But then there's the front of your hips. These are called your hip flexors. The best way to stretch that is when you're going kind of down into a deep lunge. So imagine doing a lunge. You've got your front knee forward, and then your back knee is on the floor, and then you're just trying to sink your hips down into the ground to stretch that out. Now, one of the things that people often do with this stretch, which makes it so it doesn't stretch your hip flexors as well, is that when you're doing your lunge, you have to keep your body upright, and you have to make sure that you're getting upright not by arching your low back, which is how most people do it. They'll arch the low back so they can get their upper body upright. You want to be able to squeeze your stomach and then keep your body upright while sinking down into this lunge. And in doing that, you'll feel a much greater stretch through the hip flexor. Now, for all of these stretches, because you'll notice that a lot of these things are the same muscles that get tight from sitting down all the time, you have to hold. You don't want to force them. So you want to hold the stretch for a longer period of time, like 60 seconds, 2 minutes, things where you can really let yourself sink down into it. So hold the stretch for a longer period of time. Another really good mobility exercises that works great for your legs is, well, basically just the deep squat. And this is not something you need to do weight bearing, or I should say loaded with weight, so you don't have to put weight like doing squats with barbells on your back. But literally just squatting down. So you just squat down, try to sit your butt on your feet, and just hold that position. It's well, I'm not going to say the majority of the world, but at some point that was how everyone went to the bathroom, just squatting like that. So holding that position does a lot in terms of flexibility for your knees and for your ankles. And that's the other thing that I found from a flexibility standpoint, is that a lot of people don't have enough mobility in their ankle, and again, just from not squatting, from not using that, and in which case, when they bend, instead of people always say, well, bend with your knees. If you don't have enough mobility in your ankle, it's really hard to bend down properly with your knee, and in which case, then you end up hinging more at the back, and that leads to back injuries. So flexibility. The easiest thing, if you're just looking for something well-rounded and you're not trying to figure out every stretch on its own, I would say just start adding yoga to your routine. Look, I would go on YouTube and I would type in hip mobility and knee mobility yoga, and then start getting that as part of your routine. And the easiest way to do it, they don't have to be long. Like, you only need to do 15-20 minutes of stretching when you're first kind of starting out getting into this. And if it's a light yoga and light stretch, if you do that before bed, I think you will be surprised, even without stretching your back or anything along those lines, you'll be surprised how much looser you feel in the morning by stretching out your hips and stretching out your legs. The next thing you need to know to have great legs for life is dealing with inflammation. Weight-bearing joints, because of the wear and tear, they're more prone to inflammation. But really, inflammation is always more of a systemic problem. So a really clean diet, cutting out all the processed foods, is one of the best things for inflammation. But the nice thing is, it's also one of the best things for our next point. Oh, our fifth point. We're going to get to that later. Let's bump that up. We'll bump up number 5 to number 4. A low-processed diet with not as much processed flour, not as much white sugar. It's great for inflammation, as I was just saying, but it's also great for weight loss. So you can reduce inflammation and lose weight, which is great for leg health, knee health, joint health. It's great how your legs look. Great for muscle tone. So the diet plays a very important role in terms of your legs. And like I said, you can simplify it. If you're looking for recipes from just an overall, okay, where's something I could just search and find recipes that work, that I know are going to be healthy, I would go paleo. Like keto diet would work well as well, but it's not as great for sustainability. The paleo diet, really all it's doing is just cutting out the processed crap. And in doing that, it makes a big difference in terms of your overall health. The processed food is literally killing people. The last point is joint support and muscle support. So some of that includes as basic as water. If you're not staying hydrated, the muscles are going to be too tight. They're going to get cramps, and you're not going to be feeling great in your legs. Magnesium is another thing. I've said this in many podcasts, magnesium for all, because a lot of people aren't getting enough magnesium in their diets. It's hard to supplement from a food standpoint, so to actually take supplements seems to be the best option to do it. And when you're doing that, you will find that the muscles are a lot more relaxed, a lot more loose, and when the muscles are more relaxed, your legs are going to be feeling a lot better. Now, a lot of people think of joint support, they think of glucosamine, so you can add glucosamine. It seems to have a better effect when it's used in a combination product. So something where you're getting glucosamine, chondroitin, MSM, all of those things, and some natural anti-inflammatories built into it as well. So that would be things like frankincense they typically put in there, turmeric extracts, ginger extracts. A lot of times you'll see things like cat's claw will be built into there. So any of the natural... The best thing is if you find a joint support formula, and I'm a big fan of combinations instead of buying all those individual supplements, because one supplement can replace, taking 6 supplements. So find a good joint support formula that has those things plus the anti-inflammatories, have it all built in. And if you can't find one, let me know. We'll make one. All right, so I hope this is the let's dive back into the weight. This is something, I'm bringing this up because a lot of my clients have complained about this. Cellulite. What's the deal with cellulite when it comes to having great legs? So the biggest thing with cellulite, first of all, is weight loss. So getting the weight off, which is where it comes down to diet and exercise and hormone balance. Diet, exercise, and hormone balance. Actually, hormones play more of a role. Hormones will affect the cellulite as well, but the other thing that I found that plays a big role in improving cellulite is detoxification. Most of detoxification all ties back in together to that same clean diet, like a paleo type diet. So, and then you can do additional detoxification remedies, especially ones that focus on liver health. When you're dealing with fat detoxification, you want to focus on the liver. And you could keep that really simple if you wanted to. Things like dandelion root is a great liver one. We use something called the Essential Effects Smoothie Powder, and it's designed for phase 2 liver detoxification. So let's just summarize everything. Have an exercise routine that focuses on strengthening your hips, strengthening the inside of your knee, and then finish that off where you're doing flexibility exercises at the same time. Or a lot of times, do your strength exercises, but when you're taking a break between sets, do your flexibility exercises. So that way you get more done faster and you get better effect. You're going to go on a clean diet. If you have joint issues, you take a joint support formula, balance your hormones. Done. You want to keep it really simple because these are things that you need to be able to take care of long term, and long term solutions have to be simple, in my opinion. So, with that, all of that being said, I hope this was helpful in terms of if anyone out there is dealing with leg issues and wants to improve their leg health And these are the 5 critical tips that you need to have great legs for life. This is Doc Yates signing off.
Thank you for tuning in to the Paramena Bliss podcast. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and visit paramenobliss.com for more valuable information on how you can thrive during your transition through perimenopause. Join our community of like-minded women who are dedicated to achieving optimal health naturally, and stay up to date with the latest tips, tricks, and advice from Dr. Seth Yates. And we'll catch you on the next episode of the Paramena Bliss podcast.